Alright, now I'm going to paint my bluebird. This is not a blue jay, but a blue bird. I cut out my stencil. I've already traced it onto the birdhouse, and now I am starting to go in with a little bit of creamy white here and do all the edges. So my goal is to do the entire bird in the creamy white. This works two ways. One, it gives me a base layer of white, and two, it's going to give me kind of a primer coat for my brighter colors when I come back in, instead of just painting directly over top of my background color. Tell you a little something stupid about my background color. I made that background color because I was looking for a certain tone, and I achieved what I was seeking. The only problem is, if I make a little mistake, I don't have a simple background color fix. So, a note to those of us who are not actually artists, but just pretending to be, make sure you've got a background color that you can easily access for when you make a mistake, because, well, old Bob Ross said, happy accidents happen. Alright, I'm going to complete this part and then show you what it looks like once I'm done. Alright, I have completed my first layer, my first coat here in the cream. And again, this is kind of my base layer, and that's going to be my branch, his funny little legs. And I have deviated from the original a little bit because I wanted a different ending here. And this all started out because of a mistake on the other side, where I made my branch a little bit premature and then had to come back in. I didn't really know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I just kind of figured this out and thought you guys might enjoy checking it out with me. Alright, so here's what I ended up with. There you go. And this little guy is the goal today, is to try to achieve something that looks a lot like him over here on the other side of this bluebird house. And then this item is going to go to the gentleman that built the little bluebird house for us. Alright, on to the next coat. Now I'm going to go back to my palette and look at the colors that I used yesterday. I kind of wish I would have had time to do the second bird at the same time, so I could have used up some of these colors. But in order to get some of the light blues, here I mixed a very watery white into my blue. And over here I used an original blue from my color palette. Here I started mixing a dark purple into my blue in order to get my final colors, my dark edging. So this little guy ended up with that dark purple right in that line. And then I came back in and hit these the same way with this color over here. And I am using these inexpensive acrylic paints, 50 cents a container from your local big box store. Or you get really, really lucky and you find one of these. This is the cream color. It's one of my absolute favorites. I don't like using straight up white. I like this off-white color. So that is what we'll be using here today in order to help create this little bluebird. Alright, so the first thing I did on the last bird was I went around and then kind of framed him in my darkest color. So that's what I'm going to do on this bird, is go around all the edges with one of my darkest blue colors at this time. And I've got one of my smaller brushes here. Need a little more paint. Go back, load up that brush about halfway, so I've been told. One of the hardest things seems to be keeping a steady hand. Also, getting over your own ego and what is perfection. So where I see a mistake, somebody else might not see that mistake. So you got to kind of remember that when you're doing this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and continue to outline the bird with my darker colors. I actually think I've darkened enough right now, and what I want to do is refer back to my template that I drew and notice that the colors change right in here, so I'm going to call that a mistake. That it's no big deal. I'll come back in with these and fix it in a little bit after everything's dry. But now what I want to do is kind of take on these shapes, and what I see here for the most part becomes almost a V into a heart shape. And that's what I'm going to work on trying to make next, is seeing this shape right here and being able to translate it over right there into my little bird's wings. So I'm going to make this into my nice dark blue here in just a moment. Give me a moment to show you what I'm talking about. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to make this my super dark blue in here. And I'm going to find my super dark blue comes in little pieces over in here. It'll also come in later right in that area, and then it's going to come in down on my tail as well. So here's where you can kind of get sloppy with it, because again, this is just a base layer. So I'm going to have this layer really get good and dry before I get ready to start any new layers. And right now it's just too wet for me to go on. So I'm going to stop right there, take a look at my other bird, check my colors, and continue on. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is come back in with this more of a purple blue over top of that darker color, and kind of redefine some of my lines and outline my little wings and my tail once again. This is a brighter blue I'm using this time around. It dries nice and dark. These birds are actually very bright blue, surprisingly. And I guess they live along the southeast. Kind of just learning about them, I guess that they are good bug eaters. So you want these little guys come live around your house. So this is going to get a little ugly, but I'm going to come on in with my blues now, and then we'll start hitting it with our different colors as we go along. Alright, now I'm adding a chunk of white over here into my blue. This is my palette. Just kind of mixing stuff up a little bit. I'm going to go off over here to the side and There you go. Create a kind of a baby blue. Don't worry, we're coming back in. We're defining lines and whatnot just a little bit with the other colors. So we got that going on. There's my crazy little light blue. Get a more, there we are, get a little more crazy light blue going on. Come on back into these wings a little bit. Remember that V shape I've got up here? I'm going to start highlighting that with this, whoops, hard to find. Where'd you go, light blue? Okay, I actually have to lean down and look at it. There you are, light blue. I guess it's time to make a little bit more of that color. I think it's going to be fairly popular. So as I was saying, I'm going to just kind of come in and re-hit those lines to make those a little bit darker. And we'll be hitting those again in just a little bit. Let's see, where else can we come in with a little light color? Then he's got this little eye going on up here. We're going to work on that one also. So I think last time what I did was I put a little white in there first. This time I'm going to use this light blue first. If I look back, my little guy's got a light blue circle, then a black, then a white. So put a little bit more light blue in here. I want my colors to kind of blend well, because his feathers, of course, aren't going to just blatantly change colors on me. Alright. I'm going to give him a little bit of time to dry because he's getting a little too sticky for me to work with. And we'll come back, work on this area a little bit more, and start to go into our next set of colors. Alright, now I'm just going to kind of come in and work on these parts. Trying to keep my lines working the same here. See that? Right there. You guys are almost missing that part. Right there. That's the part I'm talking about. Just going to come back in just a little bit with some purples and stuff in here. Alright. So, once again, I'm going to try to let this rest up. I'm going to let that dry. Then I'm going to come in with those other colors we were talking about. Alright, some other colors. So I'm going to bring this kind of a burnt sienna, I think this is, right in here. Don't worry about the fact that it matches the background. We're going to fix that in a little bit. Get right in there. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is bring this out, but I'm going to start mixing it with a little bit of orange right about here. Just start hitting it with that orange and mixing the two together. Then, what we're going to do next is hit it with a little bit of bright yellow. So I was just starting to get that one ready for us. And I'm going to use something super bright. Well, what do you know? It's actually named bright yellow. How about that? Alright, I got a little blob of that going on down there. And now we're going to come in with our oranges and our yellows. And he kind of whitens up in my image, so I let him do such here. And he kind of brightens up in here. This is where I said I was going to fix this a little bit. We're going to kind of contrast. I'm using just the very tip of that brush that's already got a good mix of different colors on it. Then once this dries, I'm going to come back in and we're going to re-darken those lines a little bit. Now, of course, my little guy might be a little bit fluffier than the average. Where did I see a little going on up here? In the tail feathers, we had a little color in there. Alright, now I've got my brown out, so I'm going to, take my brown. And I don't actually have a branch to look at here, so we're just going to kind of play. And since this brown is so very similar to my background, I'm going to come in with a dark brown and a white, and we're going to work on this branch a little bit. This branch is nothing special, it's just kind of a line that comes into play. So now I'm going to let these colors dry and come on back for my next set.
I think it's the last two, because the last three would be...
Okay, as you can see, I went ahead and I added all the details, and this one is a lot different than the bluebird on the other side. But that's okay. So this was my first attempt ever at a bluebird. And then I kind of relaxed a little bit and just went with the paint. And that is my second attempt at the bluebird. So I like this one. I think I actually like him better. And now we're going to try a nest right here in the middle somewhere. Let's see how that works. Alright, so now we're going to add a nest to the front. And we're doing this because we looked up a picture online and just trying to copy that image onto the front of this little nesting box. Alright, I skipped ahead a little bit here on you, and now we have ended the egg process. So I lost a little bit of footage. I'm sorry guys, but this is what we were ultimately trying to do. The eggs showing a little nest. today's rendition of a bluebird, which I find it so interesting that yesterday I did the one on the other side and I was so careful and so meticulous and scared of the paint, and then today I felt much more comfortable and confident, and this is what came out of the paintbrush. So this is my very first one, and I think he's adorable and I think he's great, and I'm going to go ahead and do something else like him. But he is very different from the little guy hanging out on the other side. Well, that has been fun with painting birdhouses with Florida Girl. And once again, this is a life's adventure. Who knew I was an artist? I'm no real artist, just having a little bit of fun with the paint in my backyard. As you can do the same, don't be afraid. Life's an adventure. As always, thanks for watching Florida Girl Adventures here on YouTube.